and welcome again everyone to Know Your Customer with Empathy. Topic of design thinking methodology, the first step of design thinking. Yes, you might have been with us already 3 weeks ago when we gave an overview of the design thinking process. And today we dive deeper into the empathy part, understanding what really causes your customers, your users, pain and pleasure. A little bit housekeeping. I saw that most of you are quite familiar with the Zoom interface already, but just to reiterate quickly, you can switch your camera on and off if you want to be seen or you don't want to be seen. I have a look at the chat throughout the session, so if you can't speak, if you can't unmute yourself, please feel free to pop in your questions in the chat, and also feel free to put your social media links into the chat so people can connect with you and reach out to you after the session. And if you're not speaking, then it would be awesome if you could mute yourself, especially if you do stuff in the background. But since we're a small group today, please feel free to unmute yourself, or if you do have questions, interrupt me. We should be able to manage that with the small group that we have today. A little bit to the small group that we have today. We run this event now for the second time in the second week because we had a little bit of posting issues. We did only post it to half of the groups and the communities that we wanted to post it to. So that's why we have two smaller events. We had another 10 people joining this event last week. A little bit to me. My name is David Hauser, THNK Innovation's Chief Innovation Officer, and since recently the new CEO of the new founded Silicon Beach, Australia non-for-profit organization. I used to be industrial engineer and designer for over 10 years. I started my career in Germany, where I was born and raised, studied there. And about 10 years ago, I came pretty exactly 10 years ago, I came to Australia, kept working in the industry for another 7 years. I designed machines for the automotive, aerospace, medical, and smart device industry. Customers of mine that used my machines were Airbus, Mercedes-Benz, Apple, as well as Samsung. So all the big players in the smart device industry used the grinding manufacturing machines that I was designing with the teams got involved. So we often had quite challenging tasks. Normally every 5 years we had to halve the manufacturing costs of any parts in our machines. So we had to think a lot out of the box. On the way through my career, I certified as a trainer with an organization in Germany, which is called the Federal Agency for Technical Relief, a little bit like the SES here in Australia. I did train people there for 10 years. Hands-on, out in the field as well as in the classroom. And I really enjoyed it. And at some point I figured out to combine the design thinking, the engineering parts, the creativity parts of my career with the coaching part. And that's how I decided a while ago to move out of the corporate world and start THNK Innovation to bring innovation strategies and tools like design thinking into the startup world. I'm passionate about helping people to succeed. That's why I got involved with Silicon Beach as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we're just incorporated as a new non-for-profit organization to bring more service, more education to early stage founders of startups and small businesses. I call myself a superhero apprentice because I feel that we all, including myself, we do have talents that we often do not tap fully into. And it is one of my missions to help people to find those talents and make the most out of them. With that said, let's jump into the design thinking session for today. And with your permission, at the end of the session, before we start in the final Q&A, I will tell you a little bit about programs that we're going to run or already running for the startup community here in Melbourne and all of Australia. But let's get started with design thinking. If you've been with us for the previous sessions, you already know the different models of the design thinking process. We talked about the 5 hexagons that IDEO brought into the public. I work a lot with the double loop model, and one of the common models is the double diamond that we see here. To reiterate, the design thinking process in general is described in 90% of the cases as a 5-step process: empathizing, defining, ideation, prototype, building, and testing. We will go through all the different stages of the design thinking process throughout the coming weeks, but today we're going to start with empathizing. And to get started with everyone, I would like to invite you to join me in brainstorm a little bit. What is empathy? And we make this a little bit interactive so that everyone gets involved. When you go to the top of your screen, you should find a drop-down menu where you can switch on annotation. You found that. And when you switch it on, you will get this bottom menu here where you then can choose to the text field, the text icon. And after that, you should be able to join me here on the screen and start typing your answers. What is empathy? And if you can't get the annotation feature going, feel free to pop your comments into the chat as well, and I will type it in the presentation for you. So what is empathy? Is empathy feeling sorry for another person? Louisa is saying it is being in someone else's shoes. Being in someone else's shoes. Chris, I think you have to switch to the text button in your menu. Step into the user's shoes, feeling, putting yourself in other person's shoes. Yes. Louisa said being in someone else's shoes. To walk in their shoes. Yes. What is the general opinion? Please, understanding someone else's point of view whilst being detached from your own perspective. That is fabulous. Who was that? Ed, that was you? That's a fabulous reply, yes.
It wasn't me, I'm just agreeing with it.
Ah, you're just agreeing, cool. That's a perfect answer, yes. Yeah. The being detached from your own perspective, that is the most challenging part of the empathy bit. So I'm just going to take a quick screenshot of here. So we have that for the follow-up session, if my computer is doing what I want it to do. And we're going to clear all drawings and jump out of this. Empathy is the capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing from their frame of reference. That's exactly, Lara, you were it, okay. As Lara said, being detached from your own from your own experiences, from your own value sets, from your own references. So what we do a lot as humans, and it's quite natural, that when we see something, when we experience something, when we see things happening to other people, we actually put ourselves into that situation, and we think about how we would feel in that situation. And the secret of having empathy is that we do not think about how we would feel, but we think about what the other person is feeling and why that person is feeling the way they are feeling. Because those other people, they do have completely different experiences. They have grown up in a different country sometimes, different families, different value sets. So what we feel in the same situation might not be exactly what they feel. And it is very, very obvious when we think about putting ourselves in the shoes of people that are growing up in a third world country, for example. If we take our standards into their situation and would look at how their life is from our point of view, that would be unbearable for most of us. We would suffer badly in that situation. But since those people in third world countries are growing up in that environment, they are used to it. So their point of view is completely different to ours here in our protected first world situations. Cool. Makes sense, everyone? Good stuff. Then we keep going.
Yes. Yeah.
Louisa, please feel free
No.
to.
No. I was just saying yes. I agree with what you're saying.
Okay. Yes.
Cool. Thanks for that. In that case, we keep going. And I like this sort of looking at it. When we talk about empathy, we're talking about we want to learn what makes a difference in other people's lives. And for that, we have to understand what makes a difference in people's lives, right? It's not about us, it's about them. I would like to share a story with you how I experienced a while ago how a company really nailed it in understanding what troubled me in my world that I was living in back then. So the story that I want to tell you is about a CD and book retailer that entered the German market in 1998. And of course, it was Amazon back then. That was before they became the one-stop shop for basically everything. Back then, it was only books and CDs and DVDs probably. And I was a big CD buyer back then. That was who does still remember CDs? That was before we had streaming services. So I started to create a CD collection, and I became one of Amazon's best customers, I would say, ordering on a monthly basis a whole set of new music. So I liked the service. The prices were competitive, and I had access to a much broader selection than with my local music stores and with my local bookstores as well. So I really loved the experience of buying from home and being able to buy everything. But one day something went wrong and a delivery went missing. And that was an unpleasant experience. I asked around in my neighborhood, the people in the house, if they saw the delivery. I received the email from Amazon that it was delivered, but yeah, no one knew where it was. It couldn't be found. So I figured out that if I want to at least a chance to get my order, I will have to give Amazon a call and inform them about what happened and that I can't find the book or CD that it was that went missing. But I procrastinated for 2 days before I actually did call Amazon. And anyone, any idea why I did not want to call them? Why did I, what was I scared of? Please feel free to unmute yourself, and if you have an idea, or type it in the chat. No, Ed, no international call costs. It was a German number, a landline, so I think it was free of cost at all. Rejection, being told it's not their problem. Very true. Lara, you're spot on again. Yes, I was very scared of the experience to being told that it's my fault, that I did lose the sending the package, and that I will be put on the spot to defend myself, why I am sort of not capable of receiving and accepting a sending. So after 2 days, I called anyway, and it took only 3 rings before I had a real human being on the other end of the line, which was the first surprise, because my expectation was also that I will have to wait in the holding line for half an hour before someone is actually talking to me. But yeah, it was very surprising that I had a real person on the line straight away. And what then happened was even more surprising to me, because they only asked me 2 questions, and I think it was a woman, if I recall that right. So she introduced herself. She asked me who I am, which was easy to answer with my customer ID, or my name and my date of birth. And then she asked me for the reason for my call. And I said, yeah, look, I've got the email that I received a package from you, but I can't find it anymore, or I can't find it at all. And I also started to assuring that I looked everywhere and asked everywhere, but actually she did not really bother too much. What she did just apologize really sincerely to me that I had this unpleasant experience. And before I said anything else, she confirmed that she already issued a shipment to replace the missing package, and that she did it as a express delivery without extra charge for me. And that was unheard of. Back then, from my experience dealing with shops, not so much online shops back then in the early 2000s, but with catalog shops, having done a lot of shopping there. My experience of customer service back then in Germany was really, really bad, especially if you couldn't talk face-to-face to people. And Amazon back then really blew me out of the water with their after-sales service, with that experience that I've got there. It was such a pleasant surprise that I wasn't put on the spot, that I was not blamed for having lost the sending or trying to cheat on them, that they said it's completely their fault, they accept full responsibility for it, and they will take care that I will get a replacement straight away. That was amazing, and I couldn't believe it, and I was really, really excited and hyped about it. And then I did something I never did before. What do you think what I did after I had that awesome experience with the Amazon after-sales service? Feel free to type it in the chat or to unmute yourself, Louisa.
You recommend everyone to buy in Amazon? from now on.
Everyone, yes.
Yeah.
Everyone. I wrote a review, probably I wrote a review back then, but Louisa is right. I called family, friends, and random people from the street or out of the phone book and told them what just happened to me. It was that mind-blowing to me, and it was exceeding my expectations, right? And these days you can think about Amazon what you want. I'm not from a customer perspective, I love what they do. I know that they had a lot of issues with their how they treat employees, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. But from my customer experience, the Amazon experience is pretty amazing, and that is at the end what counts for me when I go shopping. Where do I get the best service and the best value proposition for my money? And so even with some areas of the Amazon ecosystem that I'm not the biggest fan of, when I buy online, it is more often from Amazon than from any other online retailer, because the experience is just still very good. Yeah, why did I do this? As I said, exceeded expectations. I was in a bad emotional state. I was anxious. I was unhappy that the sending went missing. I was anxious about the reaction that I will get from dealing with the customer service. But what Amazon did with their awesome after-sales service, exceeding my expectations, they moved me from a negative frame of emotions into a very positive frame of emotions. And that's what we're looking for when we create products and services for any customer, for any human being. We want them to have a positive experience, to transition them from negative emotions into positive emotions. Or what Brian Chesky once said. Brian Chesky, who doesn't know, is founder and CEO of Airbnb. And he once said, if you want to create a great product, just focus on one person, make that one person have the most amazing experience ever. The most amazing experience ever. As Amazon did with me with their after-sales service, Brian Chesky did it and is still doing it with Airbnb. And at least in the early days of Airbnb, he nailed it very well too. And his approach is that he finds one key customer. He identifies who is his key customer, then he finds one real person that represents that key customer. And then he is using that person, inviting that person to build prototypes with them and test them directly. And when he blows the mind of that person, then he starts thinking about how to make it a scalable product that he can bring to a broader audience. But he's focusing on one person and is focusing on making a really amazing experience for that person. Chances are, why focusing on one person? It is much easier to stay focused if you just focus on one person. And chances are, when you did your job right and you identified the right target audience, and that one person is a representation of your target audience, if you make an awesome experience for that one person, you will have created an awesome experience that will excite many, many people. Cool. So we said earlier, or do we have any questions so far or any comments? Cool. In that case, I will just keep going. So we said earlier, if we want to make a difference in people's life, we have to understand what makes a difference in people's life, and that it's not about us, it's about them. And if we want to learn about other people, we have to listen, and we have to listen in an empathetical way. So some statistic to listening in general. The average human being, so everyone here on the call, when we take the average of all of us, each of us can listen to about 450 words per minute. And most of us will remember 17 to 25% of these words, which brings us down to about 80 to 100 words per minute that we can remember. And a lot of the words are the significant words, so we're not talking about filler words and connection words like is and end. We're talking about real words that convey information, right? Cool. Now, words are only conveying 7% of the information that we can use to learn about what makes a difference in people's worlds, what people are feeling. So what do you think are the other 93% besides of words that is communicating information about the emotional condition, the feelings, the fears, pains, and pleasures, desires of people? Tone of voice, Lara, right? So please feel free to unmute yourself or just put it into the chat. Ed, what do you think? We have Lara, who is saying it's the tone of voice and the body language. What do you think, Ed or Louisa? So just making a note here. We're actually supposed to do so. I focus on silent signals. Yes, silent signals are important. And silent signals, I would like to elaborate on that. A silent signal is what people are not saying is as important or even more important than what people are saying.
Correct. And what I was also meaning is the facial expression.
Yeah.
Does somebody pull a look of distaste? Do their eyes flicker? Do they flinch? Those kind of things.
Very true, Ed. Yes. All of that is true. Body language, tone of voice, facial expression, the silence. And a lot, when I say what people are not saying, what is important, a lot of people, it is a natural instinct that we do not share what really troubles us, that we do not share our fears, our pains. In different societies, it's not accepted or it's not well received when people are talking about what troubles them. We often are not really trained and educated in how to express our emotions in a way that we do not attract sympathy, pityness of other people, right? We can talk about things, but a lot of people, when they talk about negative emotions, they say it in a very emotional way, which then often trigger the wrong reactions or unwanted reactions of others. And so a lot of people stopped sharing emotions with strangers because of the fear of being misunderstood or put into a certain corner. So if we take the facial impression, the body language, when we see people are tensing their muscles when they're saying something, or as Ed said, when the eyes are flickering, or where they look when they talk about things, where the direction of their view is going, in the upper right corner or in the upper left corner, with what part of their brain they're connecting when they're seeking the right words to express themselves. All those things are indications that we can learn from what really troubles people and what really excites people, and that's what we want to learn about. And that makes indeed 93% of the information that we can get out of a communication or conversation or an interview that we're doing. So when we do interviews, when we talk to customers, to clients, it's important that they are talking more than we do and that we are digging deeper, especially when we feel that they are holding back with something, that we open up the space for them and allow them to be honest and truthful, and give them the security, that the safety, that they're not going to be judged about anything that they're saying. And we're asking them, we're inviting them to tell us more by asking a lot of why questions. What we avoid is asking questions that they can answer with yes or no, because that's very digital, and there are a lot there's a lot of information in between yes and no, a lot of options in between yes and no, that we deny ourselves when we ask yes or no questions. So when we go into deep conversations, we really want to understand our customers. We let them talk a lot. We try to steer the conversation into the direction where we really want to know more about. But whenever we have the feel through body language, through facial expression, that there is more, then we gently ask why and dig deeper into or allow the other person to dig deeper into their emotions and to share them with us.
And
Not important.
Sorry, David. When you said why, it triggered in my mind that Six Sigma process of asking 7 whys. So slowly teasing out what are the details of why they have a particular position. You know, why do you feel that way? Why did that come to you? What has happened in your background that led you to that position?
Exactly, yes. And I have to say, I was very surprised at when I was first introduced to design thinking and the whole process. I was very surprised how it works in both ways. How you can use it for product and service development, but also how it works for going deeper into human emotions. So that was something in my previous career as an engineer that I wasn't aware as much. And through design thinking, I understood that same tools like the 7 whys, I can use them to find problems with machines, with technical processes, as well as going deeper into emotions of people as well. So yes, exactly the same tools that I used to build machines there and that we use in Six Sigma to optimize processes and procedures. We can use the very same tools for diving deeper into human needs and desires as well. And one of the tools that I use in my business that I bring into the startup world, but also into the leadership coaching world, is a combination of the 7 whys and FMEA, failure mode and effect analysis. A simplified method. We all were in my career, and I just sidetrack a little bit here. In my career, even groups of experienced engineers, we always struggled with doing a failure mode and effect analysis properly. But when I started to combine it with the 7 why strategy, then it suddenly became so much easier, and I can communicate this tool now properly to my clients as well, and create real value using those engineering tool in the human-centered design world as well. Cool, thanks for that, Ed, and sorry for sidetracking here. If you want to know more about FMEA, please feel free to reach out to me. Anyway, back to this. When we listen, when we have interviews, so at THNK.innovation, we do user research, formative as well as user testing. And when we have interviews with clients and their users, their customers, we normally try 2 things. We ask for permission to video record the session. so we can review it later on, and a larger number of people can actually observe what happened in the interview. So we get more points of view. But we also ask if we, besides of recording the session, if we can have a second person as a note taker as well. So why we're doing that is because when I am taking the interviews, when I ask questions, when I absorb body language, and when I want to be proactive in guiding the interview, the conversation, anytime I have to look down to take notes is a distraction for myself, but also for the person that I do interview. Some people are really good in typing, and if you can type as fast as you can speak, go for it. That works. Look that you get a keyboard that is not noisy. But if you're not as good as a typer, as if you're more like me, having a second person doing the note taking while you interviewing is a very viable tool to get the most out of the time that a user, a customer is donating to you to help you improve your product or service. Cool. So how do we do the empathetical listening? I mentioned it earlier, and you might be able to jump back into my previous sessions. All those sessions will be published on Silicon Beach YouTube channel. So this is the loop model of the design thinking. Those are the first 3 steps of the design thinking, where we empathize, we define, we ideate, and we empathize again before we actually move on with the design process. Now, the important thing when we do the empathizing part is that we only do the empathizing part at that time. As I said, we listen. What we do not do while we are listening, we do not define what's the customer's or the user's problem, and we do not ideate how to solve those problems. It's a human reaction that it's in our nature that we want to solve problems quickly. And when we want to solve problems quickly, we normally dive into our toolbox that we already have available and say, hey, that sounds similar to a problem that I already know, and I solved that problem already in the past, so I do the very same thing again. Doing the same thing over and over again is not very innovative, and it does not do justice to the individual problem challenges that the person in front of you does have. Yes, sometimes you might have already the perfect solution for that person's problem and challenges, but yet there is a chance that if you really listen and you do not jump to conclusions quickly, that you will learn more than you think that you already know, and that you will be able to come up with a better understanding of the challenges of your client and your customer and what makes a difference in their lives, and therefore you will come up with more innovative, more creative, more advanced ideas to solve those problems. Those ideas might be building up on top of your previous experience, but in a perfect world, in a good design process, there will be new pieces added to it, new functionalities added to it as well, or it will be a combination of the past experience and knowledge of the larger group that is partaking in the ideation process. So when we do empathizing, we just do empathizing, and we focus on listening with empathy. And we do this by we're staying in the moment. When our thoughts are starting to wander away, when we're catching ourselves that we start, yeah, I know that problem, or hey, that's the right solution for that problem, we have to force ourselves to come back. Let those thoughts go and come back to the interview, come back to listening, come back to really understanding your interviewees' pain points, desires, and what's going on in their lives. The moment you jump into define and you jump into ideate while you with your interviewee, with your user, with your customers, you're not making it about them anymore. It's all about you, about your past experiences, and that's what you have to force yourself, train yourself to let go of, and stay with your interviewee. Does that make sense?
It kind of makes sense, but there's a bit of a delicate balance, because, and I don't want to call it ideation, but you've sort of identified a need. What's the kind of language you would use to explore the need? So typically I say something like, if you were able to do X, would that make life better?
I would say that's my last resort if I do not get anything out of the person. I would suggest you can give hints if people are stuck and they can't think out of their own box a moment. But let's say you learned already a little bit about the experience and you have an understanding of their point of view already. What if you would put them into a different point of view? If you would trigger them, okay, if you would be in a different situation, a slightly different situation, how would that make you feel? Right? Not change, not guide them into the direction of a solution, but guide them in a direction to look at it from look by themselves from a different point of view.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good way of saying what would you change, giving them the agency to reduce the anxiety or increase the pleasure or something like that.
Yeah, very good. Yes, love it. Yeah, a lot of people look, as they say, if you think you can or you think you can't, either way you're right. A lot of people that we are going to design solutions for, they feel disempowered to make a change, to make that change in their own lives. So if we, in the interview, we actually put them into the position mentally, emotionally, that they feel, okay, if I would be empowered to make a change, what would I change? Great angle. Yes, love it, Ed. Thanks. Cool. We're making it about the other person. It's not about us. And what happens if you can give people the understanding when they really feel understood and listened, and we talk far less than them, we really listen with empathy, then people know that we do care. And as Theodore Roosevelt once said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I said, if people feel that you care a lot, they are suddenly much more open to accept your solution for their problem as being their solution, being really a solution for their own problem, instead of being forced onto them by someone who feels, who pretends to know them better than they self do. It's all about understanding your customers and giving them the feel to be understood, as Amazon did with me. Amazon, Jeff Bezos back then really understood that I am scared, that I am really in discomfort with the customer service that I'm used to live with catalog or online resellers. Cool. That's about it for today. I have much more stories and much more examples of how design thinking can be applied, and how some of the biggest and most creative innovators in the world use design thinkings in their creation of awesome services and products that we all love. But for today, that's about it. We will have an open session to ask questions in a second. Until then, I want to quickly introduce a program that we are trialing right now with some of the community members of Silicon Beach. It is called the THNK.innovation. It is a startup and business pre-accelerator program that we're trialing right now, after we did user research with the Silicon Beach community about a year ago. And we understood that people are asking for more help in defining products and services. So we designed the THNK.innovation program around the design thinking framework. I mentioned the double loop model that we like at THNK a lot to describe the design thinking, that shows that we are learning, that it's an ongoing learning process. So we designed a 12-week pre-accelerator program, educational program around the design thinking process, where we go through at least one iteration. And it works not just for startups and businesses and founders, it also works for people that are in the corporate world, are employed, are team leaders or team members. The same tools, the same methodologies as agreed by Ed, they work for a lot of different situations, for a lot of people in many different situations. Anyway, we're trialing it at the moment. COVID put a little bit of a spanner into rolling the program out, because we wanted to do it all face-to-face. At the moment, we have a small MVP going with an online cohort. But if you would like to know more about it, if you are one of those people that are seeking clarity about their product or service offering and the value proposition, or you have many ideas, but you're challenged on making a decision which of those ideas is really worth bringing to life, or you're in a situation where you do not feel to be listened to or understood when you share your insights, your ideas, please feel free to have a look at the THNK.innovation, and you can find it on www.thinkubator.com.au, or I have a QR code on my other profile here as well. Have a look at the THNK.innovation, and if you have questions, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or send me an email, and I'm happy to explore how else we can help you with designing awesome customer experiences for your clients. Cool. That's it from me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the THNK.innovation and the other work that we're doing.